It's very nice to see so many folk here. Very nice. Could I make a gentle request? When there are so many of us, there's always folk, obviously because of work and different situations, that will arrive late. But it would be great if you can manage it, to get here 10 minutes before we start 7. Give you time to find your seat, relax. It's not like a rush, you know. Okay, you can. I know some of you work late and you run to get here. Maybe Reese, do you run to get here, Reese?
Occasionally.
Yeah. Or walk slow. Anyway, it's very nice you made it. And yeah. And of course, we're going to let James off tonight. Where's James gone?
Yeah.
We'll let James off tonight, but he's perennially late. But we'll let him off tonight. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to, I don't know if this sounds familiar to you. This is like the sort of thing that somebody might come in and say to me in an interview. I've been sitting for quite a while now, but my experience isn't what I thought it would be. I still have ups and downs. I still fall asleep. I still get restless. I still have negative thoughts that won't go away. And then I might say, well, do you think would you like to stop the practice? And they say, oh no, it's really good. You know, I'm a different person. I feel more relaxed at home. I feel a bit more spacious. And I say, oh, okay, but the main thing to remember, this is against, I think, what people think or expect should be the case. But believe me, it is within the tradition. Let it roll, you know. If your brain is running, let it roll. Because if you try and stop it, it doesn't work. So when I say let it roll, I don't mean just like, you know, go AWOL and, you know, you're lost in it. But just be aware of what it's doing. Because it won't stop. That's its job. And of course, when we sit, the longer we sit, the more we realise that pretty much every emotion will arise in the sitting. And it can be anything from joy to sadness, and they may all rotate and oscillate within 5 minutes. It's in a way, it's like a mini life. You know, if you do a session, it's like proper like a mini life. You go through everything. If you do 2 periods of sitting, it can be, you know, whatever, pleasant, painful. The thing not to do is to get stuck on negative things that arise. It's okay to be with them, but don't kind of associate them with sitting, because that's what we tend to do the way we do in ordinary life, you know. You might have a wonderful holiday, but you'll remember the time that the toilet was awful or whatever, rather than the time you had on the beach. So, but what I'm trying to talk about is, how do we stay with it? How do we stay with the practice? How do we stick with it when for all of us we have times of boredom and dryness, and I don't know, we just kind of lose it, you know, we just want to pack it in, and of course that's okay as well, but my pragmatic experience is that the benefits of the practice, you know, I always have a reservation when I say that, because I'd kind of need a doppelganger, another person like me who didn't sit, and maybe I'd feel just as I do now. I don't know, but pragmatically from sitting, it's definitely incremental. And as mentioned to somebody this evening, it's a bit like, you know, you don't put the kettle on to boil and switch it off, and then go back and switch it back on again. You have to leave the heat under for it to boil, otherwise it keeps cooling down. So how do we sustain a regular practice? And I've really only got one major piece of advice, which is, independently of how you're feeling or where you are emotionally, mentally, whatever, just get your body on the mat. It's as simple as that, really. If you're on the mat, it's enough. I don't know how it works, but we don't have to create particular conditions for sitting, or particular conditions about the way we feel or think. If you're on the mat, it works. It may take time, but it definitely works. Yeah. And at the same time, the practice is difficult, and Zazen is difficult, and sustaining practice is hard, because what we're really striving toward is to start changing our habitual patterns, and we all have a resistance to that. Even though those patterns cause us upset, or at the worst suffering, or they keep us stuck, we're really attached to them, and we get scared to move or change. And what seems to happen is that the more we sit, the more fluidness seems to arise, and the more willingness to be brave, or to try new things, or to step out of your normal routine. And it does work, it does seem to work. If you are, there's a few things that you can do. If you are really dry, or really, one is to look for inspiration off the cushion, by reading or listening to things that poetry, music, reading, Buddhist literature, walking, anything that kind of inspires the spirit definitely can be an inspiration to sit back to get back on the cushion. Discipline, that's the other thing that folk have a problem with. Actually turning up, or if they're sitting at home, making the decision to go and sit. And I don't know why, but often we bring a different attitude toward the discipline of sitting than we do to other disciplines in our lives, which we're quite able to keep. We get to work on time. If we've got children, we do all the jobs that we need to do. We take care of stuff. But when it comes to sitting, it's like it's a different thing clicks in. And I understand what it is. And it's all of us, all of us, for example, that are going on session next week to Crosby, I suspect that all of us, at the thought of going on retreat, will have some resistance. Something will come up. There will be some elements of doubt or fear, or do I roll? I give myself to that, and that's that's ordinary. But it's the same with sitting. It's the resistance of our rooted, established, habitual small self that is caught in the contradiction of both wanting to change because it's not very happy, and being really unwilling to change. What it would really like is for external circumstances to change so it felt well. And of course, external circumstances don't give one fuck about you. They're not going to change to suit you, So it's much better to, what's that phrase? It's better to put a pair of shoes on to walk 100 miles than to expect the 100 miles to be paved. It's... Okay. So, that's summed up by somebody said, what was the phrase written down here? Oh, yeah. People like to row with great earnestness. They like to row the boat with real earnestness, but they don't know untie the boat from the dock. They want to row and feel like they're getting somewhere, but the boat's still tied. And they're feeling okay. They're still feeling like they're doing something, but actually they're not going anywhere. So, and the other thing is, with practice is that, but certainly to begin with, or particularly for some folk, they come to practice really wanting to have some powerful transcendental experience, some great opening. And sometimes that certainly happens, but Are you looking after your neighbour? You know, are you being kind to the tobacconist? Are you being patient? Are you being more spacious? You know, it's much more important. Well, it certainly is to the world. Yeah, and then the final thing is that if you have an idea about the way practice should look, or the outcome of meditation, or Zen at all, or whatever Zen is, then drop it if you can. Because any conceptions you have, or preconceptions or ideas, are going to be disappointed. If that's the right word, or disillusioned, or so. In terms of this idea of a great awakening or experience, my as I say, how can you prove it? But my understanding is the transformation is just about keeping going, and that's really what I want. That's really what the efforts of this talk's about. It's about just keep going. Yeah. And if you have fireworks along the way, great, that's fun, but they don't last. Yeah, I mean, it's made, you know, change takes time. Change really takes time. If you think, you know, you've been leading your life in a very particular way anyway, maybe for many years, it's not going to change overnight. It requires incremental patience and forgiving, you know, forgiving of yourself and forgiving of other folk. And then the final thing I want to say before I finish is that does anybody keep a notebook of their practice, by the way? Does anybody keep anybody keep notes? So yeah. Of the history of their practice. I was assiduous for about 10 years of keeping notes of every session I went to and every koan I answered or didn't. And a while ago I looked at them again and I was amazed. The same stuff was still coming up. Jesus! But there is a difference. And I think, you know, what changes is not what arises in our lives, because you know we've all got our history, our conditioning, our genes, you know, the whole business. What changes is our attitude toward what comes up. So that's what changes, how we respond to what is our pattern, our way of being. So a different way of seeing it arises rather than there's any root change. Yeah. So why would we practice? No drugs, no sex, no rock and roll, no money, and no change. I'm very teasing. There's definitely, hopefully, there is change. Yeah. I'm finished. I don't know if anybody else has got something they'd like to share or ask or say.
I've got something that came up today. So I had a difficult person in front of me who was basically trying to make me look small and, you know, ridicule me in front of people. But what I noticed was I could kind of like see it for what it was, you know. So rather than like jumping in with all guns blazing, I kind of looked at it and, you know, I could see almost what he was trying to do and also feel a bit like of sympathy for him because he, you know, so it was kind of a positive thing for me.
Yeah. Good.
I'm not sure whether that's a result of practice or not. But I think what I get is a bit more space from things that are, you know, quite difficult to deal with in life, and maybe just having a bit of a, you know, bit more room around.
Yeah. It's interesting, just ordinary everyday wisdom works, doesn't it? Like count to 10, or sleep on it, you know, they all work. Yeah.
I think when you were saying, Sensei, about, you know, whatever you think Zen is,
Yeah.
you drop it,
Yeah.
let it go. And sometimes for me, that sort of, you end up in a bit of a cul-de-sac, it feels, like, you know, dumb silence. I can't say anything about it, about this practice, you know, without it being wrong.
Yeah.
But of course that's wrong as well. So it would seem that by not attaching any idea to it, it actually becomes more alive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot to be said for that kind of in-between place between, you know, you're actually defining something and you say, I don't know anything. It's always like an in-between place where you're hovering between the two.
Yeah.
It's a bit uncomfortable, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, and it's freeing, but at the same time it is uncomfortable, isn't it? Because you don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you do know exactly what's going to come up because you say the same old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you think, I've said that before. Okay, thanks everybody.